All right, what is up, everybody? How y'all doing out there? I am Frank Red. I want to thank you off the top for joining me for another edition of the In the Dungeon show. And we've, we've struggled through the off season. As we get closer to the NFL, I mean, it really gets tough too. I mean, this year we were lucky because we had the Olympics to kind of get us through. The WNBA has been pretty good, historic actually, when you consider where they are at this point. It's hard to be a baseball fan. It really is. Like I said before, NBA basketball, with the exception of a few teams, I can watch everybody. The NFL, the reason why we love it is because we literally can watch any two teams play and really get excited. There's always a decent college football game on that I can get into while I'm working out, or just chilling, to occupy my time. Baseball is different. I get being a regional baseball fan. That's not hard. But arbitrarily watching two baseball teams play is like watching paint dry to me. Luckily, we don't have to worry about that anymore because we're going to get it cracking the next week or so with the NFL. We had the last preseason game tonight between the Commanders and New England. It was interesting watching some of the players fight and struggle and do what they can do to make the team. All right, y'all. This is it's not a tough show. It's more like a celebration to me mentally. But earlier during the week, and I think you guys know this, the great NBA legend, Al Attles, passed away at the age of 87. I don't know if he was the first general manager of an NBA team, but he was a general manager of the Golden State Warriors. And the head coach led them to a championship in 1975. Growing up as a young kid in New York, he was one of my childhood heroes. And why? Because that was during the era of players looking really, really cool and really authentic. You had Walt Clyde Frazier, you had Earl Monroe, and on the West Coast, you had Al Attles with his leisure suits, big afros, full beards. He looked like Shaft to me growing up. I was like, is that Shaft? But he was much bigger than Richard Roundtree. Al Attles was an imposing 6'1", 6'2", 215 pounds, and he had a menacing look, So I'm just thinking you wouldn't want to get up in his face if you were one of his players. That's for damn sure. But the thing that really resonated with me as a really young kid, being introduced to the game, was I had never seen a coach stand up to another player to protect one of his players. And those who watch YouTube, or those who are old enough to remember, he was about to get into it with Mike Reardon, and of the Washington Bullets at the time, who was trying to, I don't know if he was trying to harm Rick Barry, but he was playing him really physically to the point where Mr. Davis was upset about it. But that was a historic event, something that you never really see. But that was Al Attles. And I remember one time I'm playing in the Garden. Actually, we were playing against North Carolina at Madison Square Garden, his Christmas tournament. And he was the general manager of the Warriors at the time. He wasn't coaching anymore. And like if you ever been to Madison Square Garden, just like other arenas, you're walking through the echoes of the arena. So I'm walking by to get some food, and I see Al Attles, Mr. Attles, and we locked eyes for a second. He just kept walking. I was just like, wow. Imagine being like a little 6-year-old kid seeing Stephen Curry now, or taking a picture with him. That was me as a 17, 18-year-old kid. So he really had an impact on me because I was not cool, and he was the coolest guy on the planet to me in my eyes. Fast forward a couple of years later, I moved out to the West Coast. First job out of college, I was a salesman. I have a sales background, and become good friends with his son, Al Ados Jr. And happened very authentically. Al's a great guy, entrepreneur, basketball coach himself, played, coached, just a real cool dude. And when I broke into the industry covering teams, I had an opportunity to have several conversations with Mr. Ados. I would see him at games and see him at the Warriors facility, and had an opportunity just to tell him what he meant to me coming up and how he inspired me to be the best that I could be. So he's going to be missed, obviously. But what a great legend, great ambassador of not only the NBA, but of sport, civil rights. There's a lot more about Mr. Davis Mr. Ados that I think will come out over time. I don't know if a documentary's been done. Al Ados Jr. is a film director, so I can't think of anybody more qualified to do a documentary or film on his dad more than him. But there's so many stories, so many interesting things about Al Ados. Played with Wilt Chamberlain, was at the game, played in the game, I guess, when Wilt scored 100 points. So a great loss, but his memory will never die. His number hangs in the rafters. But I want to send my condolences out to the family of Mr. Ados. And I was thinking about it today after kind of sitting with it for 2 or 3 days because of Caitlin Clark. And this weekend, the Minnesota Lynx retired Maya Moore's number, and now she's up in the rafters. And Maya Moore actually did a Jim Brown. I mean, maybe for different reasons, but she walked away from the WNBA at the top of her game. And everybody kind of was waiting for her to come back. She never came back. She had a greater calling, a bigger calling, and it just added to the reverence, I think, that people have for her. But like Al Ados was somebody who inspired me as a young person, Maya Moore inspired Caitlin Clark. And Caitlin talks about that all the time as a 12-year-old basketball player, meeting Maya and being wide-eyed like all young sports fans are. And to see her ascend to where she is in women's basketball, not only being as good as she is, but literally carrying the torch to get to that next level. She didn't ask for it. Some of the reasons are good or bad or whatever the case. The bottom line is Caitlin Clark has been an integral figure, an integral player in taking the WNBA to the next level. Does it mean that she's the best player? No, it doesn't mean that. But she's one of the best. Post 15 games, she's been either the first or second best point guard in the league. I would still take Sabrina Ionescu, but she's my favorite player in the league. Caitlin's right there. And nobody would be surprised going into next year if she's looked upon as, a top 5, top 10 player in the WNBA. So, but I wanted, we're going to get with the show, but I wanted to acknowledge Mr. Ados for so many different reasons. Just a true legend, a true basketball ambassador, historian, all of the above. And I look forward to learning more and more and more about him because it was a great experience getting a chance to talk to him. All right, my name is Frank Red, everybody. How y'all doing out there? We haven't done this show in a week. I've been busy, got a lot going on, like I'm sure you do. And, I said this one needs to be good because we haven't been together. I'd rather do a show once a week or, twice a week and make sure the show is worth your time. That's what's important to me. And it got me thinking about people who watch the show either live or watch it on YouTube, watch a tape of it. I don't care how many listeners you have. I don't care if you got 2,000, 200, 3, 5, whatever. You should always try to do your best to make sure the content is the best that it can be. And that's what I try to do. Really quickly, I've been thinking a lot about this. It's not a feud. It's just a back and forth between Stephen A. Smith and the great Hall of Famer Cheryl Swoops, who made some comments about Caitlin Clark. That might have been authentic and honest, but the bottom line is she's being proven wrong about Caitlin Clark. And sometimes when she's made some statements about Caitlin, the facts wasn't straight. Like even before Caitlin got into the WNBA, there was some discussion about Caitlin breaking the scoring records of former players. And Cheryl Swoops alluded to maybe she had played more games to get the record. In actuality, Caitlin had played less games. So what was a genuine mistake, I assume, to some people came off as hate. And as opposed to kind of cleaning it up and getting on board with the fact that Caitlin is not only someone who brings eyeballs to the league, she can actually play. And she cares about basketball. So I'm going to leave it there. You can do some research if you want to. I'm excited about talking football tonight. Got a chance to watch the 49ers versus the Raiders. And for the first time, I was really excited about watching Brock Purdy play. I thought Brock Purdy was awesome. I thought he played really, really well. And if there's some 49er fans out there that had any doubts, because we don't get a chance to watch practice, I think he quieted a lot of the noise about his, quote, interceptions in practice, which you hear from some of the content creators. I thought he looked really, really good. And I think the 49ers, notwithstanding Trent Williams not being there, Brandon Ayuk not being there right now, I think if they can get all their pieces together, they're going to be fine. The first game against the Jets could be interesting. Both teams have really, really good defenses. I want to see Aaron Rodgers play well. I think he will play well. This number 40 to me in this era of sports doesn't mean the same thing that it meant 20 years ago. It just doesn't. Athletes take care of themselves. They have more resources. There's more education. There's better training. And, you know, the law of averages say that a freak accident, a freak injury won't happen 2 years in a row. I mean, what happened to Aaron Rodgers last year, rupturing his Achilles after the fourth play of the season, it's just shocking. And you would think that it wouldn't happen again. So if you're a 49er fan, though, I'm talking like Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams are going to be there. How do you feel about that? You know, I'm a 49er supporter. I'm not really a fan. I'm a supporter. I like to see them do well. But they're not the same team without those two players. I think everybody knows that. There's some tough cuts to be made. I'm interested in getting your thoughts on who you think should actually make the team. Not everybody. You know, there's a lot of folks who've done a really good job kind of detailing that. Larry Kruger put out a tweet, and he actually did like a 10, 12-minute segment on who he thought should make the team, who he thought might be cut. And I thought he had an interesting take on Josh Dobbs because, excuse me, he didn't say Josh Dobbs should be cut necessarily. What he said was, without having any intel, he think Josh Dobbs might be traded. And that would clear up a spot for Brandon Allen to be the number 2 to Brock Purdy. My eye test, my eyes, and what I saw on television says that Josh Dobbs wanted number 2 position. I think Allen played well. Allen's a veteran. But I think Josh Dobbs showed he can throw the ball downfield. And there's no contest in terms of who can do more things with his legs. Josh Dobbs can. And, so if he doesn't make the team and he gets cut, and I don't think he will, again, it brings up the conversation about bias because, while I think a coach has a right to choose whomever he wants to choose, if it's an open and fair competition, I think Josh Dobbs makes the team. Now, there'll probably be some phone calls, asking about Josh Dobbs because you look at some of the backup quarterbacks in the NFL now, fans are nervous. I also want to talk a little bit about Trey Lance and the perception of him because in spite of his 5 INTs, I like some of the things that I saw. I don't know how people can get excited be so consumed with a preseason game. It's a practice game. Trey Lance is so much better now than he was with the 49ers. It's amazing to me how he's able to read defenses in spite of the 5 picks, how he can go through his progressions. His footwork is a lot better. I don't expect the average fan to be able to look at that. If you want to zero in on the INTs, that's fine. But what it says is that you may or may not know football. Growing up as a kid, watching football and ultimately playing a year of college football, those are easy fixes. Parcells took the ball out of Phil Simms' hands so much, would not let him throw it. I think quarterbacks got to be coached up. I think sometimes they get way too much rope when they haven't shown that they can handle it. And that gets them in trouble. It really does. You look at Zach Wilson, and I'm no Zach Wilson fan, but Zach Wilson last year as a member of the New York Jets was abysmal. As a backup quarterback for the Denver Broncos, he looks pretty good. He looks decent. He looks like the guy who played at Brigham Young. Will he ever be a starter again? I have no idea. But last year, he was absolutely atrocious. And to put that all on him, to me, is really not being fair and not telling the whole story. So we're going to talk a lot about the NFL. But when I look at a Trey Lance, I think of Geno Smith. Think about this. If it wasn't for Pete Carroll, Geno Smith might be selling insurance somewhere right now, or coaching high school football. All he needed was somebody to believe in him. That's all he needed. And he needed to continually improve. But he needed somebody to believe in him. And Pete Carroll was that guy. A lot of quarterbacks, particularly young quarterbacks, who don't come out and hit the ground running, they're just kicked to the curb. And as a coach and as somebody who has not always been the fastest learner, it takes me time. Now, once I learn it, I learn it. And there's different learning modalities. I talk about that a lot also. Everybody learns differently. And in the NFL, it's kind of a one-way highway. You work, this is how we do it. You either master it or goodbye. We don't need you anymore. And that's unfortunate because these organizations get stuck in the mud. They never get out. They waste millions and millions of dollars. And they ruin an opportunity for a player to maybe have a career. We're going to talk to Vicky. Vicky says, "Hi, Frank." Vicky, I got to put my glasses. I'm sorry. Vicky says, "Hi, Frank. How are you? I am doing fantastic talking to you. What is all the talk about Steph leaving the Warriors? I love Al. He was the Willie Mays of the Warriors. I love Al and Nate. Great Warriors." Yes, Nate Thurman is a little bit before my time. I know Nate Thurman watching the videos of all the battles against all the great NBA players and even more about his famous barbecue. But you know what? Look, it's interesting because I did a lot of, as I was doing research getting ready for the show, I thought about Stephen a lot because they talked about him, deleting stuff off his social media. And I don't really care about that stuff because I'm not a big social media person. But what I wanted to pose to you and to Warrior fans, what is the value in 2024 of a Hall of Fame player only playing for one organization versus at the tail end of your career when your team is starting to rebuild and look to the future, you move on to a team that's really good that can help you win another championship. Is that bad? Does that sit well with Warrior fans? Because think about this. Stephen Curry is the most popular Warrior. Chris Mullin is number 2 to me. In spite of Clay, in spite of Draymond, to me, if you ask people that have been watching the team over a 30-year period, I think Mully's number 2. Mully is so ingrained in Warrior folklore. He didn't finish his career with the Warriors. He went to the Indiana Pacers, played a good role on a team that was really competitive. I think he might have been on that team that went to the finals against the Lakers. I'm not quite sure. But I know that he went to some Eastern Conference finals and played against the Bulls. How do you feel about Stephen Curry? There's no indication that he will ever leave this organization, but it's a possibility. You know that there's only a few teams that he could even think about going to. And maybe that's it. Maybe you don't want to see him in the yellow and gold. The yellow and purple. Because, that's one of the teams. The Knicks would be one of the teams if they're good. That's about it. That's it. Stephen Curry going to OKC to chase a ring. Nah, I don't see that happening. Could he go to San Antonio for a year or 2? I could maybe see that. He got Wemby, he got some other cats. I could see him doing that. But there's about 3 or 4 teams. Can't see him going to the Celtics. That's not going to happen. New York, LA, and a smaller market, I can see San Antonio. Because he's box office. Another thing about the Warriors is interesting. I don't have it in front of me, but the Warriors have 30 national televised games. Why? Because of Stephen Curry. People talk about the Warriors being mediocre and being in the play-in. They're on television as much as anybody. I think the top team, I don't know, maybe Denver. The Lakers have like 33 national games, but the Warriors got 30 national televised games with this roster, which I don't think is bad, by the way. I don't think so. My man Keys says, "What's up, Frank? Sad to hear about Al Adams. He was one of the very few successful NBA player, coach, and general manager. True legend." No doubt about it. And, if you met Mr. Adams, it was just as magnetic as you think it would be watching him from afar. The experience was even more fantastic than you think that it would be. And yet, he was always the first person to normalize every conversation. And I love that about him. It showed his presence, his human qualities talking to him, because he could have been big as, some mythical legend. But he didn't do that. He normalized the conversations and he treated people with respect. I've had the same experience actually with Magic Johnson several times. Magic was my idol, my basketball idol growing up. And got an opportunity to meet Magic several times. And Magic Johnson, he's just like he comes off on television. Great guy. tremendous person. Engaging, smile, talk to you, look at you in the face. Yeah, I love that, man. Bebop Jones, what's up, bro? I thank you, man. I appreciate you. I love it when you step in. Lance will be out of the league in 2 years. He has never shown he can read defenses or be accurate with the ball. 5 years now. It ain't going to happen, especially with all the good QBs coming out every year. I don't know about that. I can't make that decision. I can't. He's been in Dallas for 2 years. This is the first time he's ever really got an opportunity to play. What I would say to you, Kings, you could tell me this. Has he improved? You might go, well, he has not improved, or he hasn't improved enough. As a coach myself and as a player, I'm looking for improvement, not the end result. I think Trey Lance can win games. Is he a Super Bowl winning quarterback? I don't think so. But when I look at some of the quarterbacks that Dallas has had, DeLucci and some of these, I mean, come on, man. Really? Come on. You look at the landscape of quarterbacks in the NFL. You talk about all the good quarterbacks coming in the league. Who are these quarterbacks you're talking about? These starters? They got 32 teams in the NFL. I think he's definitely going to be in the NFL. And then I would point to Josh Dobbs, and I would ask you to explain Geno Smith. Geno Smith was at the same level that Trey Lance was at after like 3 or 4 years. At the same level. And what happened? He kept working at it, and he found a coach who believed in him. It's simple as that. I would love to hear you explain that. Bebop Jones says, gold medal in Paris. One of the most exhilarating experiences I've ever had watching sports on television. We're all lucky to be alive, you know, if you're a sports fan, to watch that. That was awesome. Now, I'm specifically talking about basketball, men's basketball, but there were so many things that were great in this Olympics. LA has a lot to live up to. France was able to pull it off by saving $7 billion from the previous Olympics, and I think they did a masterful job. I think NBC killed it. Mike Tirico. There's nobody better than Mike Tirico on television doing sports coverage. Nobody's better than Mike Tirico. Watching him tonight, he seamlessly moves into football. He's probably going to do some NBA basketball now with NBC getting the rights in a couple of years. Noah Eagle's probably going to be in the mix as well. But Mike Tirico was awesome, and nobody can touch Maria Taylor either. I actually wanted to raise her name a couple of weeks ago while we were still in Olympic coverage mode. She's awesome. She really is. I see Maria Taylor eventually moving on from NBC and ultimately moving to NBC Today or something like that, because she has the chops, man. She's so versatile. She's so professional, so smart. Love it. How's that? Metal yellow, first red, yellow. I don't quite understand. Help me out. Is Dak a Super Bowl winning quarterback? I think he is. I do. I think he is. Now, do I have some implicit bias concerning Dak? Yeah, I do. I do. But not to the extent that I can't evaluate him properly. I think Dak Prescott is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Does he read defenses as well as some of the top tier quarterbacks? No, I don't think he does. But I think that's where coaching comes in. That's where coaching comes in. You know, I think sometimes his coaches have let him down because they put the onus on him to make all the decisions. And he's proven that he can't make all the decisions. So why put him in that situation? But to treat him like he's some type of a bum or something, come on. I'm still thinking, can you think of another, well, I mean, Dak was drafted in the 4th round out of Mississippi State, I guess. And, you know, people after Dak became successful, people was like, well, he was drafted too low. He should have been drafted higher. Nobody was saying that then. You know, for him to get to where he is now, and I know people might say, well, Red, Brock Purdy was the last player. You know what? Give Brock some time. You know, give him some time. You know, put 2, 3, 4 years of stellar play together. And then you start talking about him in a different light. But Dak Prescott, I think, has proven that he's above average quarterback. I think, yes, you can win a Super Bowl with him. Is TNT out now? No, they're not. They got one more year. TNT has another year on the contract. After next year, I think they're done. This past weekend, the NBA went to the courts to have the lawsuit that TNT or their parent company brought against the WNBA, brought against the NBA, to be dismissed. And I don't know if it will be dismissed, but I think at some point both parties are going to take a deep breath and say, you know what, I'm done. Otherwise, just going to spend millions, if not billions of dollars in litigation in court. And there's going to be more and more bad blood. NBC was not happy when they lost the NBA, 10, 15 years ago? They wasn't happy about that. You know, they tried to act like it was their decision and everything was all good, but it really wasn't. It really wasn't. It wasn't as mutual or one-sided as NBC wanted it to appear. But they didn't stomp their feet or make a lot of noise. They just kind of adjusted their programming, and now they've come back and they're going to do a big-time job. Key says Trey Lance played in a high school offense in college for 1 year and barely passed the ball. That's why I'm so harsh on Trey. Trey should probably be mad at 49ers for drafting him such a project. I think they should be upset that he was drafted so. I think he should be upset he was drafted so high. I said that last week. Trey Lance was not the third best player in that draft. Maybe he was a low first-round pick, maybe a second or third, but not the third pick. And I actually think that part of the 49ers getting rid of him was more financial than it was his play. He didn't have a long rope because he was making so much money. And he goes to Dallas, and, you know, Dallas could conceivably cut him. And if they cut him, I think it's going to be a financial thing. They've already paid him $6-some-odd million already. You know, and I can see Jerry saying, you know what? If I'm going to re-sign Dak Prescott, if I'm going to get CD Lamb in here, if I'm going to sign my linebacker, I can use that $6 million and go get a backup and pay him $2 million. I can trade for Josh Dobbs for the 49ers. I can trade for Josh Dobbs, pay Josh Dobbs $2 million, $3 million, and call it a day. So Trey could get cut, but it's not because he's not a good player. It's not because he doesn't have talent. And the media can be one-sided for a lot of different reasons. Vicky says, I agree. I don't think Dak has had good coaching. No, I don't think so either. I don't think it's been bad, but it hasn't been 49ers level. He's never played for a Kyle Shanahan type of coach. Now, Kyle Shanahan might not want to coach a player like Dak. I don't know. For whatever reasons. Calvin has been looking good for Brock. Yeah, yes. Yeah, I mean, you know what? Calvin's going to have a lot of things thrown at him, but, they're starting to think, we could put that guy out there, with the starting unit. He hasn't been hurt. Ricky Pearsall has been hurt a lot. I watched Pearsall at Arizona State and at Florida. I think he's a talented guy, but like I always say, football is an unforgiving game. The toughest guys are the ones that survive. The toughest guys. If you go back to those 49er teams, they did it totally different from the Oakland Raiders. But guess what? Both organizations produced some of the toughest players in the league. They just did it differently. And Cowens has that look. I'm not saying Purcell doesn't, but there's something about players who get injured a lot. I'm not even putting myself on that level, but I took pride and I rarely got hurt. Rarely got hurt. And I'm going to tell you something. This is what my college coach told me, the great Tom Penders. Know what coach said? You can play hurt, you can't play injured. And that's true. And I mean, I'll take that to the grave with me. You can play hurt, but you can't play injured. And I start thinking about, remember the 49 assistant coach, Sherman, black guy, who ultimately became the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Talk about a piece of work. I think his name is Sherman. Help me out if I'm wrong. But what he said was, I think he used to coach DBs for the 49ers. I'm not quite sure. I think it was DBs. And he said that when he played, and he would tell his players, if he had an ACL tear, or if he had like cartilage damage, he would go sit on the Stairmaster and just grind it out. Grind it out and level it out to get back on the field. That's a madman. And I mean, I'm sure it's part of some folklore, but that was his mentality. That was his mentality. I mean, Ronnie Lott cutting his finger off. A little bit of his finger is made of legends at this point. And whether or not how true it is, I know he has a little stub there, but Ronnie Lott was one of the most fierce, toughest players in the history of the NFL. And that's what it is. It's still that way in 2024. If you want a career in the NFL, you got to get on the field. As simple as that. Bebop, what do you mean by that? Picking at straws? I don't understand. Vicky says next year, if Purdy has a great year, he might make $200 million for 4 years. Really? Really, Vicky? You gonna chip in a couple of dollars? How's he gonna do that? Oh, okay. $50 million a year? Yeah, I get it now. And know what, Vicky? I actually think that contract is where it should be. It shouldn't be $60 million a year. 4 years, $50 million a year, with anywhere from 80 to 100 million guaranteed. That's what I think it would be, which is nuts. But I think that's what his contract's going to be. Particularly if the 49ers win a Super Bowl and Purdy plays well, yeah, I think a 4-year, $200 million, or a 5-year, $200 million with $100 million guaranteed. All you gotta do is play well, though. What do you mean by the COVID years? Oh, yeah, I don't understand. 5 INTs in a preseason game? It doesn't matter. Stetson Bennett is the backup quarterback to Matthew Stafford. He had 4 INTs 2 weeks ago. Now he did, win the game for his team, but he had 4 interceptions. Nobody beat him up for that. He went back to the sideline. His coach kind of, come on, let's go. He went back out there and he actually won the game. I mean, I don't know how people who watch football or watch sports would be that enamored on focusing on the 5 INTs. He threw for over 300 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. Now, if he was starting, if he had to start for the Cowboys, you're going to scale that playbook down by about 50%. That's a fact. So you tighten up the playbook until he develops. I'm still waiting for somebody to explain Geno Smith to me. I'll wait. No one has explained Geno. How does Geno Smith in year 7 or 8 become one of the best deep throwers in all of the NFL? How does that happen? I'll tell you how it happened. He kept getting opportunities to stay in the league. That's how it happened. He kept getting better. He kept working. I'm a little concerned about Jaden Daniels. And I'm going to tell you why. Because he's great. Now, the good thing about him is I think that the infrastructure in Washington is really, really good. So I don't think we're going to have another RG3 situation there. But I don't like it when the media, the fans, gas these players up when they haven't done anything. They haven't had to overcome an injury. They haven't really been hit. They haven't played in the most inclement weather imaginable. None of those things have happened. They haven't broken a bone. It's tough playing in the NFL. And your support system means everything. It says Ricky needs surgery ASAP. You're contrarian, huh? You like that. I'm not mad at you. Yeah, Shanahan says that he's going to be back maybe as early as tomorrow in practice. Mustafa was wearing number 42 jersey. What does that mean? Because he was wearing number 43 before, right? I got faith in Trey. Do you? I do too. How do you think the Ayuk situation plays out, Frank? Has it gotten too toxic? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's gotten too toxic. I think it's about money. It always has to be about money in football. And the 49ers write the check, then I think he's out there doing Brandon Ayuk things. If he doesn't get the money that he wants, then he's going to be a little salty. These pros are different. They're different. I want to see him come back. Because I think the 49ers have a legitimate chance. Again, to be right there. I don't know if Greenwald plays this year. I don't. I would hate to see Mafunga go out there and not be himself. I would love to see both of those guys on IR after put them on the come on after 6, 8 weeks, 9 weeks. And if they can't play this year, they can't play this year. But don't ruin your career trying to come back too early. Both of those players have given enough to the 49ers to the point where if they need another year, then they should take another year. I'm going to tell you something. You guys know Leon Poe, the great Leon Poe. I had an opportunity with one of my good friends to train Leon Poe a couple times. I worked Leon Poe out. And if Leon Poe had not gotten hurt, I'm not saying he was a Hall of Famer. He might think he was. I'm not saying he was. But Leon Poe would have been in the league 13 years. His hand was damn near Jordan size. He had the arms of a 7-footer, legit 6'8", and the motor of a Draymond Green. That's how hard he competed. And if you go back to the championship that the Celtics won, he got hurt a second time, a third time on his knee. He hurt his knee for a third time. And when he came back, he was never the same again. And I believe, had he taken the proper time to heal, he could have salvaged his career. So that stuck with me. I know Leon. I think he's doing really well now. I think he works for, the Boston Celtics. I think they took care of him pretty good. He's a wonderful person. But he never made the money that I think he could have made had he not gotten hurt. So when I look at a guy like Greenwald, an all-pro caliber linebacker, a Mafunga, who is a all-pro caliber safety, don't get coerced or worse than that to get back on the field. Don't do it. Take your time. Get healthy. Vicky says the players in preseason are working on things. It's just preseason. Vicky, why are you so smart? Teach a master class. Common sense. I agree with you. Oh, Ronnie Lott jersey. Really? I guess the 49ers don't retire jerseys. I mean, he kind of has a little Ronnie Lott in him, but he's wearing Ronnie Lott's jersey. I mean, I didn't know that they do that. I didn't know anybody could ever wear Ronnie Lott's jersey again. I guess it's not retired. I've never seen anybody put 16 on. Have you? I've never seen anybody on the 49ers put 16 on their back. So why is somebody wearing Ronnie Lott's number? I don't like that. 43 for Mustafa, I thought looked really nice. Brock is making $942,000. I don't hear him saying anything about it. He just goes out and plays. I really hope he gets his $50 million next year when his contract is up. He's going to get it. That's a reasonable salary for this era of football. When you consider how much money organizations, teams make, that's commensurate with what he should be making. So I'm with you, Vicky. Vicky, I think you're right on. I think a 4-year, $200 million with 80 to 100 million guarantee, I think is probably where he's going to live. And that's not a bad neighborhood to be in. That's for sure. I want to talk about, you can continue to throw your 49er stuff out there. You all won't hear me say the city before the Raiders. No, you haven't heard me say that. I'm not going to say it. When I refer to the silver and black, I'll just call them the Raiders. All right? I think, not necessary to the 49ers, but I think Devontae Adams should be traded. The fact that he's still a Raider is insane to me. Answer this question. If Derek Carr was not the quarterback of the Raiders, would Davante Adams be on the Raiders team? No, he wouldn't. He never would have went there. Even though he said that he was, even though he said that he would have gone to the Raiders, I don't believe it. Does anybody believe that? I don't think so. Trade the guy to a contender. When you have, no disrespect to O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, who are solid NFL number twos. You know, Gardner Minshew probably at the top of the list as a number two. He knows how to play quarterback. He's smart. He's good. He's had success. And O'Connell has a good arm. He can read. All of that. Those are not playoff caliber quarterbacks. They're just not. And for somebody like Antonio Pierce, who most people root for, including myself, you don't want to see that guy who came out the mud not be successful? I want to see him be successful. But you're not serious when you go, Gardner Minshew or O'Connell are going to be my starting quarterback. Come on. And they're throwing to Davante Adams? I don't get it. Now, I think the priorities for the Raiders are different now. When the Raiders were in Oakland, there was all these conversations about financial strife and how Mark Davis didn't have enough money and they couldn't get things done. I think they're very profitable now. You don't have to be, unlike baseball, where Las Vegas is a death zone because it's not going to work there. It works quite well for football. In spite of the hard feelings of the Raiders not being in Oakland, and I wish they were in Oakland, for the fans, football works masterfully in Las Vegas. It does. You got 8 games a year? You got 8 games a year. Going to Vegas for a weekend does not suck. It's actually quite fun. Imagine working in a damn coal mine in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, or working at a plant in Cincinnati, and you get an opportunity to go support your team in Vegas in a nice hotel, once every 3 years or so. They got a good thing going. Jerry Jones allegedly he told Al Davis that he was going to take care of Mark Davis. And he took care of him, allegedly. Because Mark Davis has been hitting home runs since then. He's the owner of the Aces. He's the owner of the Raiders. What percentage, I don't know. And it would not surprise me if he doesn't stick his hands in some other entities at some point. I'm ready for football, though. Now, I'm going to piss a lot of people off with this. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the first big game of the college football season between Florida State Seminoles versus the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets in Ireland. Florida State lost 24-21. Big up Georgia Tech, all right? But I knew Florida State was in trouble in the first quarter. They was treating their quarterback like he had never played football before. This dude's a 5-star recruit. Came off a comeback year at Oregon State. I'm just going to call him you because I'm not going to butcher his name. But Uangalo? Sorry. They're throwing like 3-yard outs in college against Georgia Tech. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Giving Georgia Tech all the confidence in the world when you got nothing but 5-star recruits on your roster, 9,000 portal recruits on the Florida State roster. And, you know, they're playing against Georgia Tech like they're playing against the 49ers or somebody. And Georgia Tech's a good team, but they're not better than Florida State. Now, the good thing about Mike Norvell and Florida State is this year, you have the 12-team playoffs. So if they win the ACC, they still got a chance to get into the playoffs. It wouldn't surprise me if they didn't make the playoffs, but they just made things a lot harder for themselves by laying an egg in Ireland. And it was a tough watch for me. It really was. I don't know if you guys care about that, but I like Florida State. And while I want to give Georgia Tech props for winning, that was a tremendous loss. I want to talk also about get back to the NFL, Pittsburgh Steelers. I love the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. I love what they've done. It might be a struggle bus at times. It might not be aesthetically beautiful, but I like the Steelers. I do. Their defense is going to be hellified. I love the fact that Mike Tomlin is coaching Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. That's not by mistake. You hear people talk about playing for Mike Tomlin. They love playing for this guy. Love him. That matters in football. And while neither guy is at their best right now, I think Russell Wilson and I think Justin Fields can both lead that team to a playoff berth. How far can they go? I don't know. Are either quarterback on the level of a Joe Burrow? No, I don't think so. But Joe Burrow's gotten hurt. We don't know if Joe Burrow's going to be healthy. Josh Allen in Buffalo, you know what? It's one thing to get rid of Diggs. That's fine. They didn't replace him. They did not replace him. Keon Coleman, top-notch running back out of Florida State. They got him in the second round. Good player. He's not ready to eat that whole meal that Diggs left on the table. I think that was more about ego. I think Buffalo felt that they had enough of Diggs, and they wanted to give the team over to Josh Allen. Good luck. Good luck. I can see Sean McDermott, as much success as he's had, I can see him getting fired because Miami is going to win 11, 12 games this year just because of their offense. If Aaron Rodgers is healthy, the Jets could win 11 to 13 games this year. That leaves Buffalo and New England. I can see Buffalo only winning like 9 games this year, 10 games. I can see them not making the playoffs. Why? Because they got rid of Diggs and they didn't replace him. Key says Florida State had a lot of players drafted. Oh my God. Florida State had a lot of players drafted, need time to gel. Okay. They're better than Georgia Tech, Keys. I mean, don't take that game then. They didn't lose because Georgia Tech is better. Like I said before, and you tell me if I'm wrong, their game plan was ultra conservative at the beginning of the game. Ultra conservative. And as a result, playing sports or doing anything, if you give the opposition confidence, I don't care who they are, they can beat you. If the game gets close and it's tight, they can beat you. That's what happened. If they played Georgia Tech 10 times, they would win 8. They win 8 times. So that was, and I mean, Mike Norvell basically said it. He said, I take responsibility for it. It's my fault. Yeah, Florida State fans know that. That was a devastating loss. Buffalo's run game lacking too. I agree with you. I mean, they got some good little scat backs. Frank Gore's son, Jr. appears to be a pretty decent player. Dalvin Cook's brother, James Cook, I guess he's decent. Pretty good player. But they're not the menacing team that they were 2-3 years ago. They're just not. They're just not. And I think Buffalo has opened the door for a team like the Jets to step up. I would love to see Devontae Adams on the Jets. I would love that. How do you think Michigan is going to do this year? I hate to say it, Vicky. I think Michigan is going to be probably 3rd or 4th in the Big Ten. I think this is the year that Franklin steps up at Penn State. He has a top-notch quarterback. His defense is going to be solid. Now, his quarterback has been a little inconsistent based on his reputation. But I think Franklin can flat-out coach. I think he's one of the best coaches in all of college. I think that Michigan and Ohio State have been in the way. I think with Harbaugh gone, I think Sherrell, what's his last name? Sherrell Wright, the coach's name. I think they're going to take a step back. I think they'll still be good, but I think probably 3rd, which means they're going to win, hopefully, 9 games, maybe go 9-3, 10-3. Anything less than 10 wins, regardless of how many players they lost to the NFL, it's going to be a bad look for Michigan. It's going to be a bad look. Michigan State's going to be better. I think they got the new Oregon State coach who is taking the freshman quarterback that he had at Oregon State with him to Michigan State. They're going to be better. So I love Michigan. I've always liked Michigan. Going back to Bo Schembechler. But they need to win 10 games this year. I don't think they're in the national championship conversation this year. I don't think they have to be, but they should win 10 games. If Ohio State doesn't win the Big Ten and they don't make a good showing in the playoffs, their coach is getting fired. Chip Kelly's going to be the coach there next year. So Ohio State, by all accounts, has the best personnel in the Big Ten. So they should win. I think Penn State, number 2. I think Michigan's probably number 3 this year. Vicky says the Bills' window is closed. Okay. I don't disagree with you. How do you like Jordan Mason, and how good do you think Pooney will be? Hold on, let me put this on. How do you like Jordan Mason, and how good do you think Pooney will be? He looks great for a rookie. Help me out with Pooney. Help me out with that. I'm not quite sure you're talking about. Jordan Mason, by all accounts, some people think he can be a starter, but he had problems, obviously, with the running back coach, not doing the rudimentary things that he should be doing. The fact that he's still around and he's been in conflict with the running backs coach for the last, 2 years at least, maybe 3, says a lot about his talent, because you generally don't keep guys like that around unless they're doing all the right things. Now, you have McCaffrey, you got Elijah Mitchell. The 49ers running back room historically has been pretty damn good. But every time Jordan Mason is on the field, he flashes. He jumps off your television screen. So, good player, man. Low center of gravity, kind of runs. He reminds me of Frank Gore a little bit. Solid player. I don't think the 49ers actually would be panic. I don't think the 49ers would panic if Christian McCaffrey got hurt. I think they have a solid running back room. And Jordan Mason has only gotten better every year. It's going to be interesting to see Schrader, the running back out of Missouri, see if he makes the team. I like him. And I don't think that he would clear waivers. I think somebody would pick him up. So the 49ers could potentially lose him. I don't follow the roster that closely, but I think he's going to find a way to make the 53. When I saw Schrader blow up the SEC last year, I was like, this dude's a pro. Is he limited? Yeah. He looks like one of those New England Patriots running backs that they've had all these years. Just grinders, low center of gravity. There's 3 yards to get. He gets 4.5. He's that type of player. Okay, Keith, I got it. Yeah. Dominic Puny. Yeah, he played at Kansas, 3rd-round pick. To be quite honest, I hear the noise surrounding him. Everybody like him. I don't watch the game tapes to really look at the finer parts of offensive line play. I don't. I generally take the words of the experts. They like him, So I don't think I can evaluate a right guard. I can't do that. I can evaluate a defensive end. That's a position that I play. But offensive line, I can look at a left tackle, and I think we all can look at a left tackle or a right tackle and kind of assess, how they're doing. Can they run block? Can they pass block? For the right guard, I would be BSing if I told you that I could look at him and talk about the finer parts of his game. I don't like to hear people do that either. People have never played football before. Oh, the right guard is great. He can do it. Really? Stop it. It sounds like he's a keeper. That's what I'll say about it. Selfishly, I'm going to bring up a name. I'm going to do it really quickly. Nafisha Collier of the Minnesota Lynx, for those who watch WNBA basketball. You hear about Aja Wilson, Brianna Stewart. Those 2 players get talked about as possible MVPs of the WNBA. Let me tell you right now, nobody is playing better than Nafisha Collier of the Memphis Lynx. What a great player. A former Olympian, won a gold medal this year, mother, had a child. I love watching her play. She's kicking everybody's butt right now. She really is. She is balling out of control. Keep your eyes open and your name on her. Vicky says, I know a line is bad when the quarterback goes down or is rushed all the time. Vicky, you're funny. But guess what? That's when we know it's bad, right? Exactly. That's when you know the line is not working. When the quarterback is running for his life, getting up off the ground. That's a great point. And I'm sure that you and everybody else appreciates my honesty. You know, I'm not going to sit there and talk about an offensive guard that I don't know. I didn't play that position. Funny take though. I like that. I'm bouncing around a little bit. I also wanted to, because I had a semi-respectful conversation with someone on Twitter over the past couple of days about SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, this dude was clearly a OKC Thunder fan. Before I mention that, I'm going to say that I saw a video of Chet Holmgren on Paul George's podcast, which is one of the better ones out there, Podcast P. I like Chet Holmgren. He gets it. Chet Holmgren is kind of a cool guy in that he's all about ball. He's all about ball. He's 7'1", 7'2". He's skinny, but he's not soft. I love how he competes. I think he's going to have a phenomenal career. He's kind of a tough guy. He really is. And I just wanted to say that. Everybody wants to talk about SGA and how good he is. I'm not saying he's not good, but making first team all NBA or all second team, that doesn't mean anything to me. It means that you had a good season. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that you're like the best player in the league or you're top 5. Is he top 5 to you? He has a potential to be top 5. But I come from an era where I've seen a lot of ball in my life. Is SGA mentioned as one of the best defensive guards in the NBA? Why not? He's 6'6". He should be one of the best two-way players in the league. I don't think he's a sieve defensively, but he's clearly not the best defender in the league. But fans get stuck on numbers. And what I said he is a very good player, but to become elite, his usage rate needs to go down, and he needs to shoot around 40% from three-point land. He doesn't shoot 43% from three-point range over a 82-game stretch. But fans get emotional, And then OKC had a great regular season last year, right? In spite of the Warriors giving them like 2 or 3 games that they should have won. They got bounced by a higher seed last year against Dallas. When I think of great players, all NBA first team, I'm thinking Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Stephen Curry, players who get their teams to the next level. I think Shai has the ability to be that good, but he hasn't proven it yet. Just off one season. But I think when you haven't watched a whole lot of basketball or sports in general, sometimes you lean heavy on stats. Well, he averaged this, he averaged that. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. Steph is a top 5 because he's done it. And he can still do it when it matters. Think about that, Vicky. In the Olympics, the 3 oldest guys on the team were the 3 best players. LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Stephen Curry. Those young boys didn't want that smoke. They didn't want it. If it wasn't for Stephen Curry, USA would have been playing for a bronze medal and maybe not even winning that. He took the Serbia game over And we all know what he did in the championship round. LeBron played flawlessly. KD was doing KD things. Very few players on that team could handle those moments. And Stephen took over the biggest moment. And like you said, I mean, if Stephen Curry has comparable players around him, I don't care what somebody's record is or how many points they average. I'm taking Stephen until he shows me he can't do it anymore. Keith says, Frank, what's your opinion on J.R. Rider? Wow. Keith, you read my mind, dude. I'm going to say this. J.R. Rider and I are not friends. I don't have his number. None of that stuff. I'm not saying that we're like bosom buddies. What I will tell you is I've met J.R. Rider several times. I was anticipating one thing, and I got something else. J.R. Rider's a really, really cool guy. A really nice person. I met J.R. Rider's brother before I met him. I used to play ball with his brother at the health club. And his brother's a pretty good player, decent player. Should have been a Hall of Famer. That's what I said about J.R. Rider. Maybe one of the J.R. Rider and Derek Coleman are the two players that I think of and I just shake my head because neither one of them reached their full potential. It's one thing not to reach your full potential. It's something else to have people holding the door open to the Hall of Fame for you and say, yo, come on in, come on. Just go to work, put the work in, and you're gonna be here. They're holding the jacket ready to give it to you. That was J.R. Rider. J.R. Rider's skill set was crazy. Shot 38% from three, easy. Was not hard. As fierce a competitor as anybody of his era. This dude was a big-time competitor. 6'5", 215, 220. I'm going to say this. J.R. Rider, at his best, was better than Anthony Edwards now. Let me repeat that. J.R. Rider, at his best, was better than Anthony Edwards right now. Now, will Anthony Edwards continue to ascend and get better and ultimately be better than J.R. Rider? It's conceivable. I wouldn't doubt it. But if you saw J.R. Rider at his peak, he was a monster. 44-inch vertical with that level of power? Woo! Great question. Terrific player. As much as the basketball, it's not a tragedy. This is a disappointment. It was certainly not a tragedy. Great player. Unbelievable. But it just kind of shows you the rigors of the NBA and of professional sports is hard for some people. They can't deal with it. The money, the lifestyle, showing up to work on time, understanding that no matter how good you are as a player, you still got to be coached. You still have to be a great teammate. You still got to work on your game in the off season. You got to do all those things. And JR clearly didn't to the extent that he should have, because he had the talent. One of the best players in the history of the Bay Area, and he doesn't get the respect and he doesn't get the notoriety that he deserves. But anybody played against him, come on, man. We know that Wemby is going to be great. Let me see. But now he has to do it. Yeah, and Vicky, it would not surprise me if 15 years from now, and hopefully we're all around to talk about it, if people are not talking about Victor as being one of the best players in the history of the game and maybe the best player in the history of basketball. That's a big statement, but he has a big game, and he's going to be surrounded with an IBM type infrastructure. It's hard to see him not prospering on a really, really, really high level. Dude, he's 20 years old. He was a top 5 player in the Olympics. He's 20. 26 points against the United States. Shooting threes at 7'5". Sign his name on the Defensive Player of the Year already next year. Those Gobert days are over of him winning the Defensive Player of the Year. Wemby might win that thing for 5 straight years. This dude is a monster. Next year, Victor Wembanyama is going to average 20 to 22 points a game, probably 12 rebounds, and probably 4 blocks. Great comparison. Ryder and Ant-Man Jr. Was a beast. Yeah. I'm a basketball lifer, man. I'm a lifer. I'm a historian when it comes to basketball. And Derek Coleman was a great player that Syracuse. Oh my God, Derek Coleman. Listen, Derek Coleman did everything. Derek Coleman was 6'10", could shoot the 3, had a good post game, had a good mid-range game, could pass the ball, could rebound his ass off, block shots. He did everything except play hard all the time. And the one thing that professional athletes learn, and it's shocking to them, all of us know this, not only professional athletes, but anybody who plays sports or does something, any type of skill set. I don't care what you do. It doesn't have to be sports. If you don't work at your skill or your game, you start to lose it. Particularly in sports, when your skill and your physical prowess works hand in hand. If you're an athlete, if you're not in tip-top shape, you can't do the stuff that you have mastered. You just can't. I'm watching the Minnesota Lynx play. I'm sorry. I'm watching the Dallas Wings play the LA Sparks today in WNBA basketball. I'm a big fan of Satu Sabli. I mean, love her. Great talent, great player, beautiful. She got it all going. She doesn't look like she's in shape. Just doesn't. And I know it's kind of taboo. You can't talk about women. Yeah, okay. I don't look at it like that. I look at it as a basketball player. This young lady literally is a top 10 player in the WNBA if she's in shape. Because her skill set is madness. Now, she's coming off a tough injury. I get it. But I want to see her next year. She kind of reminds me of Derek Coleman a little bit. They're both lefties. You know, she was a number 2 overall pick. Satu Sabali, she's a top 10 player in the WNBA if she's at her best. It's kind of frustrating to me. Vicky says, I wish Atman would become a Warrior. That'd be nice. Even though Steph goes on vacation, he finds a place to shoot hoops. Yeah, Steph is different. Stephen Curry is different. He's like LeBron. LeBron's different. I mean, I know Warrior fans are like, red, hell no. But did you see how seamless Stephen and LeBron played together? Was that beautiful? Wow. To see two guys at that stage of their careers, that good, playing together, was really magical to watch. It really was. And I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I said this. It's almost like a foregone conclusion that KD, LeBron, and Stephen Curry won't be on the 28 Olympic teams. I'm not going to say that now. First of all, they ain't got to travel. The Olympics are in the United States. That's a major plus for anybody who wants those guys on the team. Number 2, the teams around the world are going to be better. They're going to be better. So it's going to be tougher for the United States to win a gold medal. Number 3, as impossible as it might seem to think that these guys would still be at the top of their games 4 years from now, we don't know. We really don't know. I think Stephen's going to play the 40. LeBron, I mean, the fact that he's doing what he's doing now is crazy. KD was the one person when they asked him about 2028, KD was like, we'll see. He didn't say no. He said, we'll see. So, that got me excited a little bit. Last thing I want to talk about is I went and saw the Alien movie, Alien Romulus. And I normally don't go see those types of movies. But for what it was, Alien was decent. But on a serious note, it got me thinking about the 2 American astronauts who are essentially stuck in space at the Space Center. And they're not going to come home until February. I mean, we should all just send prayers and support to them because they put on happy faces, but, they're going to be case studies. Can you imagine being in that bubble until February? And guess what? If it was safe for them to come home, they would come home. It's not safe for them to come home as everything is right now. I guess they're going to come home on a SpaceX rocket that's going to be sent at some point. But if they thought that they could bring them back safely, they would already be here. So they don't think it's safe under these conditions. I just wanted to acknowledge them because, when people stop talking about it and they still got to deal with what they're dealing with, I mean, they're built for this, and hopefully they're going to be fine. But I just wanted to raise that because they're not coming home until February. Atrophied in their, their bone density and everything else. We don't know what their conditions will be going on the premise that they make it home safely. That's number 1. But I wanted to just acknowledge them and just say, we're thinking about you. And we hope you make it home safe. And if you like sci-fi, then Alien is decent. You might want to check it out. This has been a fun show to do. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and hanging in there with me. We got a lot covered tonight, and I might bounce in throughout the week. Maybe after cut day, we can kind of kick that around a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see who gets cut, who gets picked up, so on and so forth. But next weekend, college football is in full effect. The WNBA is doing their thing. We're getting closer to the NBA season. Giant fans, I feel for you. I feel for you, Giant fans. But when I look at the Giants, what are they, 66 and 66? They're about where we thought they was going to be. Most people had the Giants pegged winning 81 to 85, 86 games a year. That's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. So Giant fans who are pulling their hair out, if you have any, agonizing about how horrible the team is. No, they're not. They're 500. They're a little better than 500. I think they'll win probably 84, 85 games. So they need some stars. All right. Vicky, I always appreciate you jumping in here. I appreciate y'all. Hopefully you guys are banging the like button. I forget, I didn't even mention it. If you have not subscribed to the program and you like it, then please do that. Bebop, thank you, bro. He says, great show. Thank you. The Giants owners don't want to spend money. You know what's funny, Vicky? Giants have a top 10 payroll. So it's not that they're not spending money. They're not spending enough money, but they're picking the wrong players and they're not developing players. They're just not developing players. Even the A's, as disgusted as most of us are about the A's, they know how to draft hitters. They beat the crap out the baseball, even now. Keith says, smash that like button and subscribe button, folks. Thanks, Frank. I appreciate y'all. At Big Frank Red on Twitter, X. And like my man Keith says, smash that like button and subscribe to the show so we can move forward. All right, everybody have a great week. Good night, and I'll see you. SG, how you doing? What's up, brother? Good night, everybody.